Hey, everybody, and welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me, as always, is my brother Brendan. Together, we make movies with DBS Films. Today, we're going to talk about the final part of The Girl in Cabin 13, where we highlight the distribution element and also the marketing in the sense of how you can build a community off of your movies. So before we hop in, as always, be sure to check us out online. We have a really amazing Discord community that continues to grow. The Girl in Cabin 13 is our newest feature online, and we are going to continue to keep making movies. So if you guys are enjoying yourself listening to this, be sure to check us out. It's a really, really cool community we have going, and we'd love to have you. So, Brendan, we mentioned this entire time, it was a really simple and straightforward process when it came to actually making the movie, because we started from the very beginning with the editor's mindset in the sense of keeping it easy to film in the writing process, executing on it as best as we could, and it paid off in the post-production. It was very smooth. It kind of proved our model. The one thing that was kind of still up in the air, though, is, well, the monetization model. And, before we talk about what path we went, the first thing I kind of wanted to just highlight again that we've talked about before is I think it's very critical as a filmmaker to understand why you're making the movie and what the point of the movie being made is from the very beginning. Because if you're trying to make a movie just to tell your story versus you are trying to have a profitable movie to then support making future movies, you really have to completely look at it differently. So do you want to just talk about the difference and how, if you do want to make your money back, you really need to make it simple?
Yeah, going into it, this movie, this is The Girl in Cabin 13. I love this movie. It's a great movie. Everyone did a great job on it. This is not my magnus opus. I wasn't born to tell the story of The Girl in Cabin 13. This isn't a 10-year passion project where I'm like, yes, I'm going to make this movie and it's going to win an Oscar. The goal of this movie was to learn as much as I possibly can about making film and try and get my money back. And then make a Girl in Cabin 2.0, a Girl in Cabin 3.0, a Girl in Cabin 4.0, and just make my money back each time and learn. And this is my tuition. But the difference between going to film school and this is I have the opportunity to actually get my money back. So, and it was written, it was shot, and it was edited with all this in mind to make a very fast-paced movie and get my money back so I could take that money and invest in another project, because I'm not taking a cent of, any kind of profits, not that we make any profits. So it was all about taking it and putting it into the next film and learning and just growing as a filmmaker.
And, as you mentioned, it's not your magnus opus. It's really something where if it is an idea that's special to you, and it's a story you need to tell, and you look at yourself and you're like, I can't just limit this budget. Well, then fine, look at doing something that you can, limit your budget. This was one, if you look at, Devil in the Room, The Haunting of the Morgan Estate, any of these of even all of the Hateful Eight, aside from The Unseen, this has the most basic plot. More so than any of our other movies. It has the most basic plot that we have, and it has the smartest execution when it comes to the locations. And we kept this budget bare bones. As you mentioned, it is something where we don't take a cent in profit, and we're doing the writing, the filming, the videography, the directing, the editing. All of these parts are taking place, which really helps us out when it comes to the budget element aside. It allows us to pay our talent, pay our special effects, and the different items that go into it, which are still very expensive. So it gives us a slight edge up. But, again, I kind of want to touch on your budget is what determines if it's profitable. And we have a very lean production in the sense of us doing all of those roles and not taking any money from it. And we're also very passionate about doing it. So, again, if you're paying someone, how much effort are they really going to put into it? But I hear numbers get thrown around a lot, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, 100,000, 150,000, 200,000, all of these being, just the bare minimum to make an idea or something. Something we stress is literally make it for as cheap as humanly possible, to the point where it would be better for you to make something that is obviously not, a feature length film or anything like that for $1,000 than to risk it on 100,000. Do you just want to talk again about how you can almost set yourself up for failure from the very beginning when it comes to making a movie profitable. And the reason I want to talk about this is I just want, potential indie filmmakers out there to understand that maybe this 100, 200, 300K idea is something they need to shelf, and maybe they need to explore things that they can film for reasonable prices. Because again, if you make your budget low enough, you can make your money back consistently.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to like, look, this is not my magnus opus. And do I want to just try and make movies just to turn a profit all the time? No, I do have 4 or 5 really good scripts that I've been writing for 10 years that I think are great movies. But you have to be honest with yourself. I don't have the budget to shoot them, and I'm not the technical and skilled level in order to shoot these or direct these. I'm not talented enough to tell this story. And I think a lot of indie filmmakers, they come in, they think they're able to do that because they've watched a lot of movies. And that's the biggest misconception. Just because you watch a lot of movies doesn't mean you have the technical skill level to tell the story that you want to tell. So my whole philosophy is shelf these movies, these higher concept stories, the stories I'm really, really, really passionate about, and cut my teeth on cheaper stuff or stuff that's a little more bare bones that I know I could get some money back on, that I can learn from. And that'll, give the people who like horror movies, that like my horror movies, something to watch. Like, I'm proud of all these movies. I really am. They're all like my little children. And to see the feedback that I'm getting from the community is just absolutely incredible. So I love The Girl in Cabin 13. I love all the movies that I've done. But, they're not the final, isn't the magnus opus. They're not going to win me any Oscars. And that's absolutely fine. You could love the stuff you're doing. And I do them for the fans. I make all this stuff for the fans, but I make it for myself as well. So to understand that, to understand where you are on a technical and a skill level is the first step. And then the second step is to control what you can control. You have to control what, essentially you can control, and that is your budget. You can't control how much money this movie is going to make. You can't control how many theaters it's going to get distributed to. You can't control how many streaming platforms it's going to get distributed to. The only thing you can control is your budget. And if you're going to make a movie for $100,000 to $200,000, you're setting yourself up for failure unless you have some big streaming deals set up in place, some big theatrical distribution set up in place. As an independent filmmaker, the over 50Ks is a void. Yeah, you can probably get your money back if your movie can sell and does very well, but for the most part, you're going to break even. So I would really try and focus on keeping that budget as small as possible, really get as bare bones as possible, because the budget is something you can control. And the best case scenario is you get picked up by some top tier distribution companies and has a great release. Well, you're only going to see more money coming back in. And I think the biggest mistake I see from a lot of indie filmmakers is they bite off more than they could chew. They think that telling or having a bigger budget is going to equate to a better story, a better production. In most cases, and in my case, the higher the budget I had, the more crew I had, the worse the story was, the worse the movie was. I saw diminishing returns. So, just on my feedback is try and keep it as bare bones. The more minimalistic our stories were, the more minimalistic our shoots were, the better they turned out. And I don't know if that's going to be your case, but that's my case. And, that's just my experience from doing 9 movies, well, almost 11 now. So, I mean, take it as you will. You can try and shoot for the stars, and I really do. I hope you make it. But for the most part, my experience has been less is more in this case. And especially when it comes to budget and then talking to distribution companies and trying to get your money back, the lower the budget, the better.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it really is something, like you said, control what you can't control. That's the only thing you have 100% control over. Yeah, you can build a track record, a connection, and all of these things, but you still just don't know. There's other factors to it. And a lot of times, I feel bad for a lot of people who do almost kind of get that budget and then understand it's not like that. Because I'm sure there's been so many movies that, because they weren't at the technical level, because they didn't quite understand, because you really do need those reps, that their vision and their dream was so far from what they actually expected, that I'm sure, that just within itself is never a fun experience for a creative. So it's heartbreaking out there when you do see things like that kind of happen. And, as we mentioned, there really is multiple ways that you can, increase yourself as a filmmaker. I think one thing is, let's talk before we go into like the monetization route, even a direct upload. I feel like, honestly, if you really want to be a filmmaker, kind of almost take a look at what some of the YouTube or just even TikTok or just social media people are doing, because they're doing complete series. Some of them are doing more storytelling. For the life of me, I don't know if I really know anyone that's really made the big jump from one to the other. But I think you can look at just flexing your creativity and your filmmaking through multiple reps through different avenues. A direct upload of you simply filming a short or filming a short series or something like that and uploading it to YouTube or consistently to Vimeo. You build a portfolio, you build a reel, you build all of these things. But I think if you can almost have a non-existent or just completely micro budget and just kind of use it to, one, build a community, and then two, give yourself reps on a finished product. If you're the one doing from start to finish, you can get a lot of benefit from that, and then upload it and just get feedback on it. So I think, to me, I would almost rather do that route than to jump into something with 100K, knowing what we know now. If you're almost like a filmmaker and you want to stray one way or the other, I would almost tell them just upload things that don't cost you any money at all. Try and force yourself to make ideas that you can do this, and give yourself reps as an editor. I think that would be the best thing you can do, other than, just jumping right into it. Again, could people jump into it? Could they nail it? Could they execute on it? Yes, 100%. That is a possibility. But just knowing what we know, I think you're better to scale yourself up. So if you're not looking to monetize off of something, but you're still looking to be a filmmaker and you're not that confident, what would you recommend for just kind of those direct uploads, or just that whole thought process I laid out?
So here, I think, is the dirty secret of indie filmmaking, is the feedback is more valuable than any kind of monetization that you're going to get from any distribution company. You really want to just get the feedback, especially if you're a beginning indie filmmaker. Yeah, everyone wants to get that $1 million paycheck, wants to get that huge, get their money back and everything. The feedback from fans, and I'm talking mass feedback, is the most valuable thing that you can get, because you can't pay for that. To get thousands and thousands of IMDb reviews, to get, feedback on your writing process, on your filmmaking process, on your editing process, is the most valuable thing you could possibly ask for. And I think that that's just a misconception, that I think a lot of people just want to make a lot of money. They want to become a huge Hollywood star, the next big director. And that could possibly happen. But usually, if you look at a lot of people who have been successful, it comes from grinding out shorts, uploading a ton of content, getting feedback on that content, and then moving on and getting, the bigger, better things. So, especially with distribution companies, I don't think the money's as lucrative as it possibly can, unless you have a huge, budget and a huge distribution deal. You're better off looking for that feedback. And that's what's going to make you a better filmmaker. It's going to make you a better writer. It's going to make you a better editor. So it pains me to see, filmmakers who are spending 50 to 100K on a movie, and then they get 6 or 7 reviews on Amazon Prime, 3 or 4 on Vudu, and then a couple on Tubi, and they have like 30 reviews on IMDb. And it's mostly for friends and family, and you're just not getting the feedback that you need. You need mass feedback. You need people to really just beat down your movies and really give you the 1 stars and really figure out what is wrong with your movie so you can become better. And that was always my mindset. It's always been my mindset with, the 11 movies that we did. We've been very fortunate to be able to get our recoup our money back on all of these, but I've always never, if worst case scenario, I just had to upload to YouTube to get feedback on it, I would have totally done it. And now I would consider that a complete win. The fact that I get $1 back is just massive. It's the cherry on top of getting the feedback. If you were to ask me, Brendan, what's more valuable, the feedback or the $1? Give me the feedback every day of the week.
Yeah, I think that, you really don't know until you get that feedback, until you see, until you have that final product. So more reps are going to be better. And, if you do have those big ideas, just put them on the shelf and then move forward with it. Because, worst comes to worst, if you do have to upload, it is still beneficial. It is still a finished product, which is super important. And on top of that, it can build your community. You can end up getting more people that view you, getting more people that follow you. Right now in Kickstarter, there's one of the more successful campaigns was a famous YouTuber. He raised a whole bunch of money right now. So those are all different ways that you can kind of almost segue yourself into it. But I think a lot of indie filmmakers think it's just to raise money on the dream idea. It wins big, and then you're the next big thing. And that's just not the case anymore. So the positive side though is there is, it's much easier for you to make movies. The equipments and everything's kind of getting a lot more affordable, and you can direct upload. So there's pros and cons to it. But again, you want that feedback and you want those reps to really kind of grow. Now, with that being said, as we mentioned before, the first 8 movies were with the Amazon Prime Video. This was the first one that we had a different deal. And this was something that was kind of a surprise. I remember when you just kind of think we were hanging out one time and it was like, oh man, like I didn't tell you, like a distributor got back to us. So can you kind of walk through what we did for the first 8 and just how it was different from this one? And I would say now it's kind of the go-to when it comes to the indie film concept of what you can do with the current landscape.
Yeah, so for the first 8 movies, we leaned heavily on Amazon. They paid 15 cents and then went to 8 cents, and then it just kind of went almost down to like one penny. But when it was paying 15 cents, I really didn't reach out to too many distribution companies. When it got cut in half to 8 cents, I started reaching out to distribution companies. I had a solid list of about 30 to 35 distribution companies that I liked, that had good reviews, that indie filmmakers had recommended. The problem was our stuff was not at a technical level to pass quality control. So in order to, work with a distribution company, they want to make sure that your movie can pass the technical aspects as far as visual and sound and just legal as well. Anything that, can cause issues, because they're going to be uploading to Comcast, DirecTV, like all these bigger platforms. They want to make sure that if they're going to pitch your movie to Netflix and Hulu, that it is able to pass their quality control and be uploaded to them without any issues. The first 8 movies never passed quality control. The distribution companies passed on them because they knew that there was technical issues with them that were not able to, upload. So that conversation stopped immediately. So going into Girl in Cabin 13, I was like, all right, I don't know if this is going to pass quality control, but I'm happy with Amazon Prime. I feel like this is a well-paced movie. At this time, they were limiting the amount of people that were actually going on the AVOD platform or the SVOD platform, the Amazon Prime. So I didn't know if we were actually going to get into that. So I reached out once again to the 35 distribution companies. The difference this time is we got offers. And this was kind of a wild story because I had just assumed we were going to go with Amazon. So I had uploaded to Amazon already. It was in the process of doing Amazon's quality control check, which is just making sure that like there's no huge issues. Once I had uploaded to Amazon, that process started. And then I sent out a whole bunch of emails and started calling distribution companies. And we essentially had about 16 offers in 48 hours. And this was kind of crazy. And I had never experienced this before. And I think this is a milestone in DBS history where we actually had people fighting over this movie. And it was kind of crazy. And so it's just a whole nother process that you need to figure out. It's a huge process if you're an indie filmmaker. But for the first time in DBS history, we actually had the ability to pass quality control. And we had a movie that people actually liked.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that, again, there's a lot of different milestones. Some of them are technical, some of them are writing, some of them are editing, whatever the big learning lesson was. But I think one of the bigger ones for Girl in Cabin 13 was the fact that we did start working with the distribution company. And, you did mention that it was the first one that ended up getting offers. It had a few multiple offers with it. And it really opened up that new process. As you mentioned, it does come with a whole nother can of worms when it comes to quality control. So, I think one thing I'd like to highlight is how much more work you really kind of need to do to get to those quality control standards. Again, if you're hiring out, this should kind of be the main thing they're looking out for. But when it comes to just, a budget and everything, when it comes to just the final audio mixes and things like that, or things that they're going to require of you, is there almost kind of a budget you should keep in mind when it comes to almost getting it from the final project to basically distribution ready, in the sense of those touches up that usually are required?
Yeah, I mean, I was really freaking out over, because when you sign with a distribution company, you have to go through their internal quality control, or if they outsource to a quality control company. And I was so nervous because I was like, man, we barely passed. We probably didn't pass quality control before, and this is the first time I'm going to work with a company that actively wants to make sure we pass quality control. And it's essentially Netflix. Like, this is Netflix, HBO Max. These are the companies that they're using to upload their stuff. So it's like super strict on everything they do. They're expecting $1 million productions, and here we are with our little Girl in Cabin 13 on a micro budget. And I'm like, there's no way we did all this stuff to code or up to spec. And there were no issues. When they sent me back that issue, their actually requirements and their issues that they found, is like 3 or 4 things. And 3 or 4 things were all just creative control things. And that was pretty much it. And it was the easiest process. And it gave me a lot of confidence, saying like, I balanced the audio correctly. My color correction wasn't too wild. It wasn't bad at all. Getting the 5.1 mix, this was the first time I was doing that, was a little bit technical, and we had a little bit back and forth on actually create a 5.1 mix from our stereo mix, which I'm used to just uploading on Amazon. But really, YouTube and Google are there. It wasn't too difficult. And the company that we worked with, that they outsourced with, was actually really helpful. And, just getting to where it needed to go. So honestly, the quality control thing, I was so nervous about it. I lost a lot of nights of sleep. It really wasn't that bad at all. And I feel it gave me such a boost of confidence, saying that like the stuff that we're filming, the sound and the video and the quality that we're getting is Netflix standard. It's HBO standard, that they have no problem pitching, because if you pass quality control, you're free to pitch to whoever you want to pitch. And the fact that we have a Netflix and HBO quality movie and theatrical movie is just a huge confidence booster, that we can do this on such a small budget and such a small scale. And we essentially have the ability to make hundreds of millions of dollars if the movie just absolutely explodes and gets a theatrical release and goes on to win a whole bunch of Oscars.
All right, come on, Girl in Cabin 13. We just need a little bit more from you to get to the Oscars.
Sure let's go.
A few more weeks away from that. But yeah, no, I really do agree, in the sense of it's something that you need to prepare for, especially if you're not the one doing the editing, because it's going to rack up more hours. But for the most part, thankfully we had a pretty smooth process, because I remember hearing some of those ones where just like, well, they didn't email me, I guess that means it's good. But before we even start the quality control process, one thing that I see a lot out there in like the indie film market, and just kind of in a lot of speakers or interviews or something like that, is be wary of these distributors. They're aggressive distributors out there, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, that can be the case, which is why you always want to do reviews. You want to make sure that you're working with reputable companies. Which, again, of the 16 offers, we only reached out to those that have a really, really good working relationship, and it's really been a great experience so far. With that being said, though, I do think that indie filmmakers, because they don't have a business mindset, it really sets them back in this process. Because I have a feeling that, they're so exhausted getting to the final product. They've been through it. They've exhausted their budget and so on and so forth. And they're trying to get it out there. They don't necessarily fight for their movie in the sense of what is almost expected. And what I mean by it's expected is, do you want to kind of talk about just a contract process and how when you first start, of course, the first contract you get is going to be completely in their favor and they're almost expecting you to come back. And I feel like a lot of indie films, almost kind of take exactly what they get right away. They don't read their contract. They don't understand that it's a back and forth between the business where both parties need to try and fight for what's best for their business and what's best for your business.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm going to give the disclaimer that this was my first time doing this, but I feel like I did a pretty good job, and I think what you talked about is there's a twofold issue. The first is, the filmmaker is exhausted and they want to take any kind of distribution deal that could be possible, and number one, just having a distribution company is a huge step. It's a huge milestone. So there's a lot of prestige involved in this. When we did our successful festival run and, the Girl in Cabin 13 won a whole bunch of awards, I had a whole bunch of, distribution companies reaching out to me. And it felt good. It's like, these people want my movie, they want to distribute this. And, obviously the distribution companies can tell you what they can do for you. Out of the 15 or 16 offers that we had, I think only 8 were really legit. The other 8 were companies that had some sort of issue with them, or they didn't pay the filmmakers, or there was just, bad reviews on them. But I mean, it comes back to, you have to negotiate yourself, and you have to understand the distribution companies are going to try and negotiate, with their best interest in mind. And the second thing is, like, if you make a movie with a huge budget, it's no matter what your distribution deal is going to be, it's going to be just difficult to get that money back. So once again, it comes back to just making sure you have the best, you're going into these negotiations with the lowest budget possible because it can put you in a better place to succeed. But I mean, it's your job to negotiate these contracts. The contract that we first got versus the one we signed is completely different. And you should have a lawyer. The first person I reached out to was our company lawyer to make sure, that these contracts that we're signing were in my best interest. And I could show you the red line contract that we got back from my lawyer was saying, this is all ridiculous stuff. And they pulled it all out. And I think if you're a filmmaker and this is the first time you're looking at a business contract, you can very, very easily get screwed. And there's still a lot of stuff in the contract that I actually signed that I'm still not very comfortable with, that, I've learned from. It's a learning experience, and, we're going to learn from it and put ourselves in a better position to succeed next time. But once again, this is my first time doing this stuff. So there's some stuff that, I can't beat up myself too hard. And I think that overall, from the feedback that I've gotten from other people who have looked at the contract, we've done a very good job. And we just got our check the first a couple of weeks ago, and we were able to get an actual check as opposed to the distribution taking all our profit.
Yeah, another big DBS milestone in that sense of, new avenue there. I completely agree in that sense. I think what I want to kind of outline real quick is it's just a relationship in the sense of, ideally they want to win-win. They make more money, you make more money, then they continue to do it. I don't think there's any ill-gotten in the sense of one person trying to rip it off. Now, again, it's all case by case. Some people are a little bit more aggressive. It all comes down to the details, but for the most part, it is a symbiotic relationship where, in order to profit, these companies need movies, and in order for movies to get made, you really do need to have some sort of profit stream for them to continue going. So to highlight, I think something is, your status as a filmmaker is really, really critical in the sense of what you offer coming to the table. So I think one thing I want to highlight is, if you look at the table of signing a distribution deal, On one end, you have a distributor, which again just needs to fill eyeballs. I mean, there's a steady demand now. There's a lot of different streaming sites on there. There's a lot of different options out there. And if you just look at the numbers of like consumed time, they're looking for that next whatever it may be. And they're looking to get it as affordably as possible. They're actively looking for good movies that will do well. Like that's basically, at the end of the day, what they are looking to get. What they typically get, on the other hand, is just a ton of movies that frankly aren't marketable. They frankly are not at the level or caliber that will actually really get people to see them. So at that point, they're basically risking their time in the sense of they have this demand, but they also have so many indie films. And a lot of the indie films that we watch, even from other distributors that have been picked up or whatnot, they're just not marketable. They might be your passion, your story, your art, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, there's not enough eyeballs if it doesn't have a main actor who's famous to some degree, if it doesn't have a high budget for special effects, or if you just don't have the marketing behind it. How are you going to get these eyeballs? It's not guaranteed. So do you want to kind of talk about from a distributor's end, just how many different movies they probably see on a daily basis and why that's going to affect the offer and also the time they give you, in the sense of, I almost feel like on the indie side of things, someone devotes so much time to the project. They're like, why aren't you, talking to me or giving me more information or saying this? On the distributor side of things, I have 10 of those on my desk right now.
Yeah, I think there's just a lack of, it's not quality, but it's like a lack of marketable movies on a distribution side. And the distribution, they're gonna essentially upfront their time and money to try and promote your movie. And that includes like quality control, that includes going to pitch meetings, that includes, marketing costs and everything. So they obviously want to have stuff that sells. Like, Kelly, you can speak on this. How many indie films did we watch that were in our budget range, probably way more than our budget range, that were actually good movies that had a sellable, like had the ability to sell or mass market? I can think of maybe like 2 or 3. Like, how many have we actually watched?
I mean, yeah, when I think there's like off the top of my head, like 3 to 4, but of those 3 to 4, I need to know what 2 of those budgets were. Cause like, it could be even a wild shot of, what it came out to be.
And like the distribution company that we work with right now, they had multiple tens of millions of dollar releases. And it's just like, there's no way they're getting their money back. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, it's like what Kel said is like, they want to find movies that they can market and that they could sell. But just because they can market and sell, it doesn't mean you're going to get your money back. If you have a giant budget in there, there's just not, unless they sign some giant, great deals, you're just not going to get your money back. I think a lot of people look at that and they blame it on the distribution company for not marketing their film. But it's hard to market something that just wasn't in the best position to succeed in the first place. And you got to have something that, if you don't have a name cast in there, you have to have a well-paced movie, and it has to have a giant market potential. And usually horror is the best way to do that, because everybody likes horror and they'll forgive a lot of mistakes. And if you don't have a big name cast, horror fans don't really care about a big name cast. But if you're doing a comedy, if you're doing a comedy drama, if you're doing romance, if you're doing sci-fi, if you're doing thriller, you're going to run into a lot of issues. It's just harder to push those movies. And I think a lot of indie filmmakers give a lot of hate on distribution companies for not, pushing their film when the film just wasn't pushable in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, it really does come down to that. They're out there hunting for it. And a lot of the movies, like we said, and again, I give every indie filmmaker a ton of credit just for producing and uploading something. But on a mass market, who's really going to watch this? And there's so much stuff out there. There's so many more. So, they're going to lower their risk. They're going to, try and give themselves as much margin as possible, because, again, if they knew a movie was going to do really well, then they're going to be, more likely to sign. And I think maybe to kind of highlight this, just what we know now with the performance, we did get the first check. We did end up, hitting the milestone of getting through the upfront cost. But with that in mind, how does this change us going to the table now? Now we know that, well, Girl in Cabin 13 was #1 on Tubi, trending for a while. We know that this is the content that people are looking for, and now we're building a community. So if you're that indie filmmaker on the other side of the table, I think, yeah, if this is your one film, you finally made it, you're burnt out and you're discouraged, it can be, pretty negative. But if you know that this is just a stepping stone, that no matter what came out of the Girl in Cabin 13, what's your mindset now that we're going to bat with the Murder House?
It's a whole nother ballgame. And this is like why you have to have multiple movies. The game has essentially changed because I could take these figures, I could take these metrics. We're the #1 movie on Tubi. And this is all what other distribution companies want to see, because the biggest thing is the risk, it's the unknown. They're so worried about working with unknown filmmakers. The fact that we have a track record, the fact that we have all these super fans, makes everything so much easier for me going to the negotiation table. It's easier for me to raise money now, because guaranteed the worst case scenario, they can fall back on the Girl in Cabin 13 and say, like, all right, at the minimum, the Murder House is going to do these metrics. And it just makes everything so much easier, because you essentially want distribution companies to bid against you. That's what's essentially making a marketplace. You want to make a marketplace for your movie, and having a past track record is the #1 way to do that. Michael Bay and Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan's essentially, what's his next movie going to be, Kel? It's like some period piece. Christopher Nolan's doing Oppenheimer. He's probably raised $300 million doing that, but they know him because he's done all these big time movies. So we're not Christopher Nolan, but we're building a track record, a reputation, saying that, look, we can get our money back. So give us a little bit more and we'll make you more money. And if one distribution company doesn't want to do that, then we have others that hopefully will build that market up. So just looking at the Girl in Cabin 13, the success of Girl in Cabin 13, and being able to take that data, physical data from multiple sources, from Apple TV, from Tubi, from Google Play, from Comcast, DirecTV, all the essential pay-per-view channels, and being able to take that to the table is a huge step. And do we sign a good deal with Girl in Cabin 13? I think we did, but the next deal is going to be way better. It's going to be much more lucrative for both us and the distribution company.
Exactly. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for essentially someone like us, just because we are very focused on the business model. We come to them with split tested covers, with blurbs, with metrics, with all of these things. And at the end of the day, they just want to kind of pass it through that system. Now, what I'm saying is, again, we have a very business focused mind. Brendan's mentioned it multiple times. These movies are seen just as progression for the most part. Making $1 on it, making any money over it, is just what pales in comparison to the actual feedback we get and the understanding of the process, because now we can scale into it, now we can make more. So to quickly last touch on just where we're at, we're working with a distributor. Do you want to kind of highlight our process going forward, in the sense that we're looking at almost testing all of the different avenues out there? So do you want to talk about how we're looking into an agent for this one, and then also kind of potentially aggregators in the future, just to really discuss what it's like to be a filmmaker and the different outlets you might have?
Yeah, so for Girl in Cabin 13, I've essentially played the role of the sales agent myself. We garnered 15, 16 offers. And when one gave me an offer that was better than the others, I took that offer and I essentially sent it off to the other ones and said, look, can you match this offer or beat it? And this went back for about 2 or 3 weeks, which is what I recommend. If you don't want to pay a sales agent, get as many offers as you possibly can and send them back and forth to the other distribution companies. And this essentially makes your market. You're essentially making a market for your movie. And you'll have the best and final when, I sent off I was down to like 2 or 3 distribution companies. I had a really good offer. And I sent to some other companies, said, look, can you match this or beat this? And they're like, no, this is like we've hit it. We don't feel comfortable making a profit on your movie. We're backing out. And so when that happened, I knew for sure that was the market of the movie. This is what The Girl in Cabin 13 can do. This is it. I have to sign this deal. And that's what we did. And we got a very good offer. It's very lucrative. Like we got a complete check. We made a profit the first quarter out of the gate, when I think a lot of distribution companies or independent filmmakers will sign the first deal that they get and not realizing that that's probably the first deal is in the best interest of the distribution companies. So always negotiate. You can't get what you want unless you ask for it. So I think that's the first step. But the second thing that we're trying to do next time is, use a sales agent. Sales agents should have more connections. They should be willing to work with you a little bit more. They should be able to negotiate a lot of the smaller details. Like, I feel like if anything, I could have negotiated the smaller deals, the minute aspects of the contract, which I wasn't really aware of because I was so focused on the overall metrics and obviously the upfront fees that we have to pay and our royalty rates and the cut from the distribution companies. But there's very small details in there that you can actually negotiate that'll put you in a much better position. And a sales agent should be able to do that. That being said, the sales agent isn't guaranteed. They're going to want to have something that they feel like they could sell because they're investing their time. So we're going to invest in this avenue or try and take a shot at this avenue for the Murder House. And then we're probably going to do an upload ourselves to Film Hub for the Shapeshifter. And that's exciting because the cut is much more lucrative for the filmmaker via Film Hub. The distribution opportunities may not be as much as far as like a wide visibility aspect, but just having, the larger percentage of the actual money and the ability to get on the AVOD platforms, which I think is where our movies are going to do the most damage as quickly as possible without having to worry about these long extended windows, is going to be super beneficial to us. And, I've talked to Film Hub. I've worked with them the last couple of months just to see what they're all about. And, they like our stuff and they're willing to work with us. And they do pitch to a lot of other outside studios. Now, whether or not their pitch meetings are heard, I don't know. But we're going to find out. I think it's just a matter of, once again, this is a new level for us, and to figure out, what's best for us and how to actually navigate this is trial and error. Like it is with filmmaking, it's trial and error. It's, making mistakes, understand these mistakes and not making them again. And that's just how you just move forward in this whole process.
I completely agree. I think it just shows the DBS mindset as well, that we're already like, all right, well, we did this, let's try this. Because, again, every time we learn, we level up. And by this time next year, we'll basically have more information on Girl in Cabin 13. We'll easily have The Haunting of the Murder House out. We'll easily have The Shapeshifter out by this time too. So in just 1 year's time, we'll know all of the avenues of distribution, figure out which one works best for us, and also build our case. And speaking of building the case, one thing that I think really came out of The Girl in Cabin 13 was we did start to push our community a little bit more. In the sense that since we were getting back on track, we'd finished the Murder House, we were just posting more when it comes to social media. We'd only just had like an Instagram really. So there wasn't really much of us to, get out there and be in touch with our community. However, I would say post Girl in Cabin 13, that all changed. I really do think one of the bigger things was, having that distribution network did give it more eyes. But we did end up starting a TikTok page. We got lucky with some of the behind the scenes from The Girl in Cabin 13, which, really started to take off quicker. But more so, I think it allowed us to understand the importance of building a community and how, the movie being on Tubi opens it up to so many more people. And, I think now we're starting to understand this and building the brand of DBS. And I think the cool thing that, I just want to talk about with the community, because I think it's always a timeline. If you're just starting off, it's going to be small. If you end up getting really big, you're going to have a large community naturally. But do you want to just talk about how the benefit of building a ton of work can really just help you foster community regardless, just because a lot of our super fans now, they go back from the very beginning and they kind of take a look at the whole history that you have. So, you know, I think this goes back to just uploading and finishing a product, but what's the benefit of starting to basically build this universe of DBS?
Well, I think the Girl in Cabin 13 was like, all this stuff happened at it's essentially the right moment. I don't think we would have been able to build a community with the first 8 movies because I just don't think they were good enough to have people interested in them and interested in the process. Where Girl in Cabin 13, I think, was the first one to really be like, all right, this, people can see what we're trying to do. Is it a perfect movie? No. But they can understand that we're an indie filmmaking company and the movie's good enough to capture their attention. And it just goes back to distribution. When I went to the table on the distribution deals, my biggest concern was not monetary, like how much are we going to get compensated for this film? It was, who has the biggest reach? How many platforms could we possibly get on? Because I know that's how, we wanted to cultivate our fans, and I wanted to once again get our feedback. So I signed with the distribution company that's going to give us the most platform and the most visibility. So I think it all happened, at the time when it needed to happen, which was Girl in Cabin 13 came out. We started hitting on social media and people started reacting to it, and it kind of just grew and it grew and it grew. And the community that's going to build is going to be the most valuable resource that we've ever had in DBS history. Because not only, once again, I want the feedback, and the feedback has been absolutely phenomenal. The interaction has been absolutely phenomenal. But, we can go and say, look, we got an army of 1,000 people ready to watch this thing right off the bat, to spread the word, to engage people. I mean, we have Aries making bumper stickers. I got a sticker on the back of my truck right now. So that is such valuable feedback. And you just want to have, the following, even if we started with 50 of them, I'd rather have 50 diehard fans than 50,000 fans that just watch a movie and are just like, all right, this is a horror movie. We're really trying to find and cultivate the community of people who love this kind of stuff, that love the indie process, that want to support the indie studio. And, that is our goal. And to see it grow from 1 to 50 to 100 to, I think, what are we up to, like almost 700 now? It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the one thing I do want to put a disclaimer on, I think we're experiencing some crazy hyper growth. I think we're getting lucky with a lot of the members we did get, because I mean, they're just contributing so much. But also it is something where it's a ton of work. I mean, it really is to cultivate and do what we're doing when it comes to how active our Discord channel is. I honestly haven't really seen anything quite like it. But again, it's a testament to, we want to support the people who are supporting us, because like you said, this is our most valuable thing. So, I don't want other indie filmmakers to think that, hey, if you just, kind of throw some stuff out there, because a lot of times, I see an indie filmmaker who will just make an Instagram, a few posts, maybe have a Twitter, and like that's the extent of their marketing. Really what we're doing is kind of a next level, working with our fans, casting them in our movies. I mean, we're playing Minecraft, we're doing trivia night, we're doing all of these things to really kind of take it to that next level, because we see the benefit in it after making all of these movies. But what I think any indie filmmaker can do is, even if it's 1, even if it's 5, even if it's 10, 15, 20. I mean, literally when we had our first 10 super fans, I was like, this is the craziest thing ever. We just kind of put the gasoline on the fire with how we cultivated it. And now, I'd say we're up to 700 members. Of that, 100 of them are diehard super fans. So we do get the benefit of those feedbacks and the community and everything. But with that being said, even if I just had the first 5, the first 10, the first 15, just the first few, it would have been immensely better with the feedback and everything. So I think one thing, if you upload films, it allows you to then kind of seek out this community, to build this community. So, you kind of touched on it, but I really want to highlight, having someone that you can go to for feedback is immensely powerful. And then also having demand for it as well too. We're looking at launching Kickstarters, we're looking at doing these things, but knowing that you almost have this community to fall back on, would you say that it just empowers the entire process of the movie? And then the last thing I do want to touch on, and actually just answer this part of it really, how much better does it make the process knowing that you have a group of people that are just like, yo, keep going? Because when we first started, it was nothing but, like you said, you had to get those brutal, honest reviews. But as any kind of filmmaker, if you can find those people that support you, how much of a difference does that make?
I mean, it gives me, a ton of motivation. Literally through the first, even through the first part of Girl in Cabin 13, it's just been 1 stars and, just people who don't like these movies. And, I'll speak to this multiple times. This is the first time that we found like a community of people that is our audience. These are people that like our movies and they understand that they're not perfect, but they're interested in how we operate and how we make movies. And, I'm truly blessed to have, all these fans. It's a whole nother level for me. I spent 12 hours coming off a cruise to just edit the Murder House. I spend another 12 hours tomorrow editing the Murder House to get it up to you guys. And I'm not going to stop. It motivates me more. We're writing scripts left and right. So it's super beneficial. And I'm forever grateful for your feedback because it's going to make me better. The honest, brutal feedback is going to make me better. And it's going to make our process better, and we're going to make better movies. And if you like the movies that we're making right now, just wait, man. We are just getting started, and just to have a little bit of momentum. All I needed was a little bit of momentum because I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now, and we've had no momentum really. We've only had disappointment and sadness. And that's all right because I'm not going to give up. I would never give up. I would just continue to do this because this is what I feel like I've been put on this earth to do. The fact that we have a little bit of momentum, a little bit of feedback, a little bit of hope essentially is so motivational. It's just next level. And everything I do, I'm waking up a little bit earlier, staying up a little bit more late. And I'm ready to work, man. I'm ready to get this done. My actors are ready to work. Kel's ready to work. We're all ready to work because I'm ready to, get this thing going. I want to make DBS up there, right next to A24. They may have the first letter in the alphabet, but they ain't the best. We're coming for them. So, just that motivation and seeing the feedback and all the feedback, whether it's positive or negative, just gives me motivation. And, I'm ready to keep going. We're talking about scaling up. We're ready to go. So just to see this community grow, it's an absolute blessing.
It truly is. And I love that. We're going to take a clip of that. That's our fire up speech from when we do anything big. But no, it really is true. It really is something where I want any indie filmmaker, listening to this right now, or anyone listening, just take note that the most powerful thing that we will ever have is going to be our community. And I highly advise any filmmaker out there to start building your community, no matter how small it is. Start a Discord, interact with them. I mean, honestly, it comes down to, it's just interaction. Our super fans know they can reach out to me at any time. They can talk to us. They can give us feedback. We listen. We love it because it's just a win-win. And, I think one of the more powerful things you can tell them, and I tell them all the time, is I'll never forget the first people that get us to that point. The first people that get us to the point where we can start really focusing in, getting that, momentum, we'll never forget. So I highly recommend anyone out there, you go ahead and do that. And then also from a distribution element, moving forward, we know more about this, but now we have, one of the more powerful things, which is, again, people look at these, talk about real quick how just because everything is getting condensed when it comes to just, how hard it is. There's more things out there, but it's no longer a product. People almost want a brand. And you're seeing it just with a lot of different businesses. You're seeing it with personality. You're seeing it to, just the business element of it is looking for a brand, something that's more long-term value. And with that being said, having a community, having something like that, it just kicks the doors open to the conversations I think we're going to have. It just allows us to have a completely next level multiplier, because this is what people are actually looking for. And if you can grow it organically, it's going to be super powerful. So do you think that this, any studio needs to be looking at this? Do you think, like, just 5-10 years, how interactive do you think studios are going to be? Because I really think we're laying a groundwork here.
I mean, I don't know if any other studio is going to do this. I don't know. And I don't think they're going to. I think that's what sets us apart. What makes us unique is we're pulling back the curtain. We're going to show you our failures. We're going to show you our successes, and you're here for the ride, man. I don't know where this thing's going to go, but you can come and you can have a great, time. You can meet some cool people. But the fact that I could go to a table and negotiate with a distribution company and say, I have the DBS army behind me, and they will literally, they will fight for us just as hard as I'm going to fight for this company. And I got 1,000 of these guys, they're going to come. We're going to get to 1,000, might be projecting future growth. But the fact that they have my back, and the fact that, they will back our products for everything, is so valuable. And it's such a valuable thing that it's going to make us such a better film company. And we're going to grow so fast. We're going to grow so quickly. And, what the effort and the time and, the energy that the super fans give to us, we're going to give back. We're casting Aries. I'm looking to cast multiple super fans. I'll get everybody in a movie. Even if I have to make a zombie movie, I will do it. We want to grow with you guys. And that's essentially the whole business model. It's shifted. It's gone from making movies to making movies with our fans. And that's just, I'm forever grateful for everyone that's in that community. So it's super beneficial. And I'm forever grateful for your feedback, because it's going to make me better. The honest, brutal feedback is going to make me better, and it's going to make our process better, and we're going to make better movies. And if you like the movies that we're making right now, just wait, man. We are just getting started, and just to have a little bit of momentum. All I needed was a little bit of momentum, because I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years now, and we've had no momentum, really. We've only had disappointment and sadness. And that's all right, because I'm not going to give up. I would never give up. I would just continue to do this, because this is what I feel like I've been put on this earth to do. The fact that we have a little bit of momentum, a little bit of feedback, a little bit of hope, essentially, is so motivational. It's just next level. And everything I do, I'm waking up a little bit earlier, staying up a little bit more late, and I'm ready to work, man. I'm ready to get this done. My actors are ready to work. Kel's ready to work. We're all ready to work, because I'm ready to, get this thing going. I want to make DBS up there, right next to A24. They may have the first letter in the alphabet, but they ain't the best. We're coming for them. So, just that motivation and seeing the feedback, and all the feedback, whether it's positive or negative, just gives me motivation. And, I'm ready to keep going. We're talking about scaling up. We're ready to go. So just to see this community grow, it's an absolute blessing. We're in a completely different phase of our development, because we have momentum now. We have an army behind us. We are essentially unstoppable. The only thing stopping us from, doing what you want to do and having huge theatrical releases, having DBS fan Halloween horror nights, and, crazy cruises, and essentially doing whatever we want with our fans and building that community, is just a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, and just me learning how to get this whole process done. But I think the hard part's behind us. And I think that, we have the momentum. I can't give up now. We're too close to the finish line. So I think we just need to just continually learn from our mistakes, get better at filmmaking, and just grow that community, man. Get that army strong, man. Well, 10,000 DBS army followers. Let's go, man. Let's get some theatrical releases. Let's go up there with the Avengers. We can do it. It's just a matter of time. That's it. I have full confidence that we have the ability, that we'll learn from what we need to really get this to be the #1 film studio in the whole United States.
And there it is. That's going to be a moment for DBS. Again, I'm not even doubting it to any degree, which is something, as we're very pessimistic. I really do think the hard part's over. And I think the way that we're going to market, the way that we're going to work together, the community we're going to show to anyone and everyone that wants to be part of it is going to be something that's completely unique and different. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time. But with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. Again, guys, we cannot say it enough. You have been such an amazing community for us. So everyone listening to this, I'm looking forward to, a lot of times I stumble on podcasts and I go all the way back and listen to them from start to finish. And I think this episode is going to be a treat for a lot of people because, this is where we're at right now. This is where we're at in this time, in this moment. We're pretty confident. We're very confident because it's going to happen. It's just going to take, time. So I'm excited for it. We're going to keep you updated. We will actually start hopping into the Haunting of the Murder House. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about the Haunting of the Murder House. Hopefully this will push Brendan to get to those final edits so we can kind of discuss post-production. But until then, have a good one.